is to have a freewheeling discussion among my colleagues and to entertain some questions from you regarding what to do after the first year, what sort of courses to take, whether you might think about concentration or whether you want to take courses in a variety of areas, how you should approach basically the selection of courses after the first year. You should keep in mind that we have only two requirements once you get by the first year, and that is you have to take a course in legal profession, which is a 2-credit course, and it ought to be taken either in your second year or in your third year. And the other requirement that you have is an upper class writing requirement, which is described in the bulletin, which is basically a writing experience which we think is quite important, that is done under the supervision of a faculty member, and you have certain drafts to go through and produce a satisfactory work product. What I'd like to do is to ask each of my colleagues to take about 5 minutes to explain to you what their philosophy would be and what their approaches would be in the selection of courses in the second and third year. And as you will see, there is no prescribed formula. Indeed, the law school, faculty, and administration alike does not have a prescribed course that you need to follow through on. It's pretty much left up to you, and our purpose here is to try to give you some guidance as to the direction that you may want to follow. So let me start first by asking my colleague Will Hellerstein, who teaches in the constitutional law area, civil rights and civil liberties, to say a few words about how he would go about selecting courses, and then we'll hear from the others and entertain your questions.
I guess I would start by saying that law school, like life, should be enjoyable. And therefore, the first thing I would say is if you know what you enjoy, go after it. I think people tend to do best when they are very interested in what they're doing and when they're having fun. That's easier said than done. If you know the kind of law you think you'd like to practice, the area in which you'd like to concentrate, prepared guidelines for areas of concentration. So if you know, as some of us did when we were in law school, I know I did, but unlike now, then you didn't have the cornucopia of courses, not in my law school, that would feature those interests, or feed them. So if you have that kind of view of who you are and what you think you'd like to be, I would say develop your curriculum in that direction, but also make sure that there's a balance. In other words, let's say you wanted to be a public interest constitutional lawyer and say to yourself, I'm never going to be a business lawyer. I don't like business. That's capitalism. I'm for the people. I would say it's a great mistake not to take a course in corporations or some commercial transactions course, because poor people have economic needs as well, and that you may encounter later in life, not thinking you would have to deal with that. So if I'm going down the line of preferences, one would be start with what you think you would like to study. What courses turn you on more than others, but make sure that you do not exclude courses that are essentially the kind of courses that all lawyers should have knowledge about. You might even consider a tax course, which you might say, I'm not going to be a tax lawyer, but a course in taxation gives you the wherewithal to work with difficult statutory material, which is the meat of what lawyers do, no matter what context they're practicing in. So I would not exclude it. I was a miserable tax student, but I did not regret that I suffered and survived. Fortunately, nobody needed me to be their tax lawyer thereafter, and there was an even match. One important thing is I think no one should graduate law school without taking a clinical course. This too, in my time, was not available. I graduated from a fine law school. I had not the slightest idea what to do the first day in the courtroom. I didn't know how to put a piece of evidence in. The judge said, I said, I like this in evidence, Your Honor. How about laying a foundation? What's a foundation? And I got an A in evidence, but no one ever told me how to do it. I could spot the issue, but I didn't know what to do. Fortunately, your education comes at a time when we who are educators have learned a lot about that. So you should take a clinical course so that you develop, at least in one context, a skill of how you do something. If you have interests in the criminal field, you of course should take trial advocacy. I would even recommend trial advocacy to anyone. There's something about the legal profession at large in the hiring of young lawyers. There's a romance perspective that if you can try a case, you can do anything else in the world. And if you're not a trial lawyer, but you've had trial advocacy interviews, so well, trial advocacy, I have found that to be a feature that people respect. So if you have the stomach for some combat, even in a simulated sense, I would urge you to do that. We have a vast clinical offering. I think you've already heard and learned about that. So that would be my recommendation. Lastly, I would say, take courses with professors who have a positive buzz about them. I hope that's true of all my colleagues. But you could take a course, and I took several professors because of who they were. They were in subjects that I had no interest at all in, but I didn't want to graduate without taking a course with this person based on what everyone had said. Well, I developed an intense interest, certainly for the entire course. I didn't change my life, but I certainly enjoyed courses in areas that I didn't think I'd have the slightest interest in, and I did very well in them because the teachers were there. And a good classroom session, as you well know, is an enjoyable experience. And if you can learn a lot about thinking about a course, think in terms of teachers who challenge you, who have the reputation of challenging you. So I would add, that up and start, and where I began. Enjoy, spread yourself around. The one thing I do not personally subscribe to, which I would not choose courses just because they're going to be on a bar exam, and feel that I must take them because they're going to be on a bar exam. I know that's what you hear around the school. Your bar review course, which is longer than the sentences of some of my clients, with misdeeds, as it is now administered between your MPRs or whatever, your multi-states, and they start you in the end of May and they torture you, and you're going to get a lot of that stuff. So I would, possibly one or two exceptions, I would not say, I've got to take this, I don't like the professor, I don't like the course, I just want to be on a bar, I've got to take it. That would not be my personal choice.
Great. Thank you, Will. Let me turn now to Claire Kelly and ask her to give us her thoughts on this question.
Hi. I would agree with Will about the school of thought that there are some core courses that perhaps you would consider taking even though you may not want to be a corporate lawyer or a tax lawyer. I will tell you, I took tax because I thought, well, everybody should understand tax. And I really liked it. It was my highest grade in law school. So you never know what you're going to like. I, too, agree with Will about not taking a class just because it's on the bar. And I will tell you that I didn't follow that advice when it was given to me not so long ago. And I took a lot of classes because I thought I had to. And I missed out on a couple of things which probably would have been fun. And now that I teach here, I think, gee, I think I would have liked to have taken a more theoretical class, a jurisprudence class, a law and class, because now it's really the only chance that you have to do that. I think that as many writing courses as you can get into is fantastic because you will be doing a lot of writing, so that's a good thing. Also, you really shouldn't get through here without taking a clinical course. And I also just want to add one other thing, which is one school of thought is if you want to help yourself lining yourself up for a job, that, and I wouldn't say this is for everybody, but it's one way to look at things. If you know, well, I think I might be interested in real estate, or I think I might be interested in trusts and estates or something like that, one thing you can do is you can pick some courses which are going to show to prospective employers that you have a demonstrated interest in an area. And very often you're able to do things like take a real estate course, take a real estate clinic, take a writing course perhaps where you could write something on real estate or do an upper class writing requirement or an independent study in real estate. Now, I'm not saying everybody should target exactly what they want to do, decide right now and commit to it, but I'm just saying that that may be an option if there's something that you think you might be interested in. Maybe your grades weren't, what you'd hoped they would be, and you're thinking, I want to make sure I'm lined up to be able to do something that I'm interested in. That's one possibility.
Thank you.
A lot of us, when we talk about course selection, talk about foundation courses, and those are the ones that are, I think, fairly obvious in terms of corporations and evidence are two major foundation courses. Tax, I happen to think, is one, but I also teach the tax course, so I don't want to be just touting that course. But there are some courses that are foundation courses that are important for you to take in the second year as opposed to waiting to take them in the third year, because there are a lot of other courses that build on them. If you want to take securities regulation, if you want to take corporate finance, those require you to have corporations before that, and if you wait until the sixth semester to tackle corporation and decide that, gee, I kind of like this particular area, I would now want to think about securities regulations, well, unfortunately, it's going to be too late. So those are some of the things that you need to be thinking about in terms of course selection. Let me turn the podium now to Jim Santo, who teaches in the corporate area, but he'll talk about more general things as well. Jim?
As this goes along, and you'll find us repeating ourselves, is, we actually really do agree on a lot, I think, and the more we go through the years we do. I teach in the corporate or the business area, so I just would reinforce with what Dean Zanana said, that if you think you're interested in doing more the corporate securities law practice, then you want to take corporations as soon as possible. You have to take it your second year, because it then opens the way to more advanced courses. I just would reinforce with what Professor Hellerstein said too, which is, this is the time when you can actually think about the law and have some leisure before you go out, and we all hope you'll get a good job, but then what comes with a good job is that you never have any time to do anything, to think. You just, work hard and think about things other than your job. So this is really that time, so you should experiment around and think about different courses. I really believe that's important. But then with Professor Kelly, I'm a little bit more on the specialization side without being crazy about it, which is to say that, it could well happen that you go through 3 years and you don't know. You say, well, I really don't know what I want to do. I mean, you have to kind of decide toward the end if you expect to get a job. If you don't have to, then fine, do something else. But if you do, then you'll probably want to be thinking about it. And I just say you have to tend to push yourself, because you're not going to be pushed necessarily by anybody here. I mean, we're not going to say, okay, well, half the class has to be business and this or that. It might happen in something like medical school where they would try to push you down one path. So you have to push yourself. So I just say in the second year, to try to get a in the course of your second year, get a feeling for what you like. And we've spelled out, in the booklet, what are courses that you should be taking if you want to follow a particular orientation. And you can also come to any of us. If you know that, for example, I teach in the business area, you just want to come by or call up or make an appointment, and I can tell you what I think you should do. And we'll all willingly do that. But I feel that you sort of should push yourself so that by the time you're in your third year, maybe you'll change your mind, but maybe not. You should be doing a little bit more specialization just as the years go on, so that toward the end, maybe you're doing 2 courses out of 4, whatever in your area, or the area you think that you want to pursue. Just again to reinforce what Professor Kelly said, it's one thing to be in the top of the class, then you can take anything, and they'll, you get hired by a big firm and get a great salary. But if you're not, fortunate to be there, sometimes the fact that you've done courses in an area which allows you to know the concerns and speak the language of those practitioners, makes you a more, attractive candidate for a job in a place that you'd like to pursue. In an area that you like to pursue. You're becoming one of them, and you're showing that you would like to become one of them. And that's what specialization helps you do. But again, to do it without foreclosing the experimentation that Professor Hellerstein, I think, has rightly said, you should also do while you're here.
I would add just another comment to this, and you'll hear it, I'm sure, from others, and that is the 3 years or the remaining 2 years that you have to spend here is probably your last clear chance to pursue something in the liberal arts and enrich yourself in different areas. This is a time to consider, in addition to the 2 specialization courses that Jim was recommending, maybe taking a course in jurisprudence, maybe taking a course in tort theory, maybe taking a course in law of war. Those are interesting topics. You may not be practicing law of war, I doubt anybody will, but they're fascinating, or law in the conflict in the Middle East. Those are interesting issues, and this is, as I think both Professor Kelly alluded to and others, this is your last clear chance to do that, and it's enjoyable, it's fun. Let me turn now to something equally enjoyable, Ted Jackson.
I thought I was going to get to be the one who, and I suppose I will, the one who gets to say, eat your okra. But before I do, I want to reiterate what Victor said about putting aside subject matter specialization. Before you graduate, I know you have an upper class writing requirement, but just don't think of that as a thing you have to get through. Take classes that will get you to write. I would say in each semester, if you can, take a class that will get you to write. And don't just take a class that will get you to write. Take a class that will get you to write and think about the law in a scholarly or intellectual way, not just as in a descriptive way. It's a skill that you can learn in law school that will serve you well in practice. It doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It's just a way of thinking, and you should take the chance to do it, to try to take a course that will force you to reflect some. Okay, that was out of character. Now I'm going to step back into my assigned character and talk to you about the commercial law side of the curriculum, which is where I teach. I teach the UCC classes and bankruptcy. These are courses that people often tell you they're only taking because they're on the bar. In fact, they often tell you that they're taking them because they're on the bar, but they don't actually know what they're about. So I can't tell you not to take it because it's on the bar. Don't take it because it's on the bar. Take it because you know what it's about and it seems interesting. So I'm going to tell you what the courses are about. The problem is most of the UCC classes hide behind a name. It's called Commercial Transactions, and everyone goes, well, which is, should I take Commercial Transactions or Commercial Transactions blah, blah, blah? And I'm not telling you, because if I told you what the names were, it wouldn't help you. Let me tell you, there are 4 things that we teach in the commercial law curriculum. Buying stuff, paying for stuff, borrowing money to pay for stuff, and getting money from people who refuse to pay for it when they owe it to you. Now, what are those courses called? Well, buying stuff is sales. Paying for stuff is alternately called commercial paper or payment law. Financing or borrowing money to pay for stuff is secured transactions. And getting people to pay who won't pay you because they don't have any money is called debtor-creditor or bankruptcy. Okay? Those are the four principal course areas. We cut them up in various different ways in the curriculum, and that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, because there are a couple of things that build on each other, and sometimes people, if you don't think about it a little bit in advance, you can find yourself foreclosing some options. The first bit of advice about how to approach the commercial law area is you should think about taking at least one of these courses as one of your foundational courses. Now, which one? I just gave a list of 4. Well, actually, you should take any one of 3. The thing you need to know, that you need to know not because you're going to be a lawyer, but because you're going to take the bar exam, but because you're going to be a lawyer, every lawyer pretty much needs to know something about secured credit. It's something that is pervasive in legal practice, it's something that's not intuitive, and it's something that if you screw it up, you get sued for malpractice. And there are 3 different ways in the curriculum of picking up enough secured credit to go off and be a responsible lawyer. You can either take the 3-hour sales and secured credit class, you can take the 3-hour secured credit alone class, or you can take debtor-creditor, which will talk enough about secured credit to familiarize you with the area. If you're only going to take one course in this area, take one of them. Doesn't matter which one. Do that based on which seems more interesting to you and which professor, they're probably all neat, but which professor seems more interesting. So that's sort of one bit of advice. The second bit of advice is if you really love this stuff, or think you're going to love this stuff, or want to be a transactional lawyer, think about which. One bit of advice is that debtor-creditor is generally only offered in the fall. And if you want to take business reorganization, debtor-creditor is a prerequisite to business reorganizations. So if this is an area where you think you might want to take lots of courses, think about taking debtor-creditor in the fall. Second, there is a nice synergy between debtor-creditor and secured transactions. You might want to take them together, or you might want to follow one with the other. And that brings me to my third point, which is a more global point, which is when you think about your curriculum, when you think about what you're going to take, try to think about synergies between courses. It turns out that there are a bunch of classes that seem to work well together. And you may not know which ones they are. That's something to talk to us about. For what it's worth, students taking corporate finance and business reorganizations together have a much better time in both classes because they're doing them together. People who take business reorganizations after or at the same time as taking corporations have a good time in those classes because there's a lot of cross-fertilization. Students taking debtor-creditor and sales and secured, again, see a lot of stuff pulling together all at the same time. There are other areas in the curriculum where you'll find some of the same synergies. I can't describe them to you as well because I don't know where they are, but it's worth talking to your friends in the upper level and to professors to see if your schedule has a balance that will cause you to, in effect, have your curriculum build on itself as opposed to spreading you further apart. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ted. I'm going to ask Jennifer to provide us with her perspective, Jennifer Rosado, to provide us with her perspectives on course selection, and then I'll have a few words to say about how this process is going to work, when the schedule of courses will be available, something about registration, and then we'll take all of your questions. Jennifer?
I know most of you have seen enough of me this week, but I'm talking about something completely different. And I don't know if it was on purpose that Dean Zanana put me after Professor Jenger, but I must confess I did not take tax and I barely passed sales. So I am going to come from a very different perspective from Professor Jenger, and yet I stand up here and I consider myself a good lawyer and teacher, but I just took a very different path in law school than some of my colleagues maybe did. I do think there are a couple things to keep in mind, and I don't want to repeat what others have said, but I think it is important, especially as I know many of you are evening students, and you have a tough life beside and on top of school, that you barely get
get things done. You want to kind of get out of here sometimes as quickly as you can at 10 o'clock at night. But it really is something that you will appreciate a lot more 10 years down the line, and you'll say to yourself, gee, why didn't I enjoy this just a little bit more? Why didn't I take this course? Because it was really the last time I had to take international human rights. Am I ever going to see that again? This is your chance to do it. So really take those opportunities. The other thing that you find, besides being tired and not feeling like, gee, you want to take advantage of every opportunity, is that there is apathy that sets in the upper class years, because you're sitting in the big classes and you're learning things in a different subject, but maybe not challenging yourself as much as you might like to. And I guess I would like to just end with the analogy of an athlete. You're here in law school to really train yourself as an athlete, and not necessarily to train yourself as an athlete for a particular kind of race. You want to be a good all-around athlete when you get out of here. And part of doing that is, first of all, knowing if you're going to be a better 100-yard dasher or a marathoner, because if you really do want to do depth in one subject, you really want to be an intellectual property lawyer, that's fantastic, and you should try to take advantage of those opportunities which are all here. But at the same time, if you just want to say, I don't know what I want to do with my legal career, take advantage of those opportunities. The broader you go, the more opportunities will be available to you also as you get out, and the more interesting that you'll be, and the more interested you'll be in law school as well. So the other thing I say is challenge yourself, because, just like any athlete, if you stay at the same level, if you run 5 miles a day for a year, you're not going to be a better athlete. So find ways to challenge yourself and to keep things interesting. To be a good all-around athlete, I think that some of us have already touched on this, is to vary depth and breadth. And that means that you do that in the same semester. For example, don't take all your core courses in one semester unless you really don't have a choice because of your schedule. Because it's going to be a torturous semester, because if you're taking tax and evidence and corporations, first of all, they're going to be all big classes, they're going to be all passive classes, and you're going to be very, very heavy reading. And so, again, vary. Take international human rights with tax, and then take a writing course on top of it. You will just have a menu of very different and interesting things that will make you better, and it will be a more interesting semester. And I also agree with varying the bar courses. I think you want to be, it's one way to choose courses, to choose bar courses, but I also agree with taking courses that you find interesting for some other reason as well. For example, I think criminal procedure, nobody I think mentioned that one, but I think criminal procedure is, I think, a very important foundation course. It's also another constitutional course where you really get to look at a Fourth Amendment. It's really one of the backbones of our constitutional system in the Bill of Rights, and I think it's important to take that course. So the other thing I say in being a good athlete is varying depth, varying breadth, as well as varying the kind of analysis that you're going to be engaged in each of the classes. So, for example, take some common law-based courses. Take administrative law-related courses. Take courses that are related to public law or constitutional law, because all of that will make you a better athlete. It will make you a better problem solver, because the analysis that you get in practice, you never know what you're going to come up against, and that's real important. Interval training. Second good message for the athlete is interval training. So vary the size of your classes. Take them small, take them large in different semesters. Vary the amount of credit hours. Try to be smart about that. If you take 3 2-credit courses, as you all know, if you've ever taken anything from me for 2 credits, that it is not, your 2 credits blow up into 3 credits. And if you take 3 2-credit courses instead of 2, 1 4, and 1 3, you're going to end up with a little bit more work. So try to vary the credit hours so you have a rounding, as well as looking at your exam schedule. If you can vary, if you don't have 5 exams, have a take-home, 3 in-house exams, and a paper. That's better than having 5 exams at the end of the semester. And again, it'll just make you better at what you do. It'll make you a better, it'll maybe even help your ranking too, because you won't be doing everything at once. Third important lesson for the athlete is get good coaches and mentors, very important. So not only taking who you like, who you think is interesting, also who's going to teach you something, who's going to teach you a good modeling of analysis, who might give you a good recommendation, who's practicing and teaching in the field that you're interested in. You want to be there too, and so take those classes and take advantage of those professors. I would also recommend that you look ahead of time, and if you are asking around to a professor who's teaching in a subject area, is maybe try to find out how often that course is taught. That's even more important for an evening student than it is for a day student, because, for example, you may have a professor who's teaching a seminar next year. Gee, that sounds interesting, but make sure that that teacher's going to plan to teach that seminar if they can at least predict that. Oh, they usually teach that every year, or is it every other year? If it's every other year, you may want to take it next year and not wait for your fourth year to take it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And strength training as well as cardio, right? So strength training in your law school curriculum is writing, it's research, it's clinics, because you want to build skills that are going to be able to basically be transsubstantive, that are going to be working in every subject area that you're going to be involved in. So keep that writing muscle working. Don't say I'm done with the appellate advocacy. Thank God, I don't have to write again. You should be writing every semester, and again, in different subjects, different kinds of writing. We have some really great writing offerings now. The legal writing professors just are creating some fabulous courses, and you should take advantage of those as well. And that's really about it. Just follow up. If you have questions, we're all here to be available for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let me just say a couple of words now about the process. What you have is the student guide to the upper class curriculum, which is something that the faculty put together last year, and gives you a fairly good way of analyzing the courses and the offerings and in what areas they fit in and how they tie into particular areas of concentration or specialty. You should also be consulting the bulletin that each of you has a copy of the bulletin. Both the bulletin and the guide to the upper class curriculum are online, and you should check the materials that are online on our website as well. The registration materials, you will be receiving, there will be a schedule of courses released in about 2 weeks, and this will be the schedule of courses for the entire academic year, both the fall and the spring, and you'll have an idea as to what will be offered in the fall, what's going to be offered in the spring, and try to begin constructing your schedule. The registration materials, this is all the paperwork that you'll need to fill out and go through, will be available in about a month, which will be just about as you're finishing exams. You will be getting that package, and you'll have a couple of weeks to fill it out and then return it to the appropriate place in the registrar. For those of you who are day students, the full-time day students, it's important that you take courses over a 3-day period. You cannot take them over just 2 days. The majority of your courses have to start between the hours of 9 a.m. and before 6 p.m. And there are some additional requirements in terms of the number of credits that you need to take to satisfy residency requirements. These are not rules that we have set of our own volition. Rather, they are rules that we have to apply and impose in order to satisfy the requirements of both the American Bar Association as well as the New York Court of Appeals and its rules governing the admission of lawyers to practice in New York, much like the well-loved attendance rule that was talked about earlier this year. So that's essentially what the process is about. There will be a number of details, and if you just follow the instructions, check the website, everything will work out. We're happy to take any questions you may have or any side comments from the panelists. This is a good time to do it. We have at least another 15 or 20 minutes. Sure.
Maybe, Victor, you might want to answer this, how you may want to be aware of how some classes might fill up, so you can't count on getting everything. If you make a backup plan?
Yes. There's often oversubscription for some courses and some faculty members, and we are limited, unfortunately, by the size of the room, or sometimes the limit on the number of students that can be enrolled in a particular course because of the way the course is taught. And we have a variety of priority mechanisms to ensure that the students get an opportunity to participate in these courses. With some priorities are afforded to third-year students, some to second-year students, but there is a mechanism that's brought into play that is administered by the registrar, and we are looking at these priority rules right now as to whether they are being administered fairly or they are fair, inherently fair. So we will be taking a look at those. And what we're going to try to indicate also in the registration materials that you will be receiving is whether certain courses will not be offered in the succeeding year. There are some courses that we will be not be offering next year that we expect to offer the year after that. And there are also some courses that will appear in the 2001, 2002 schedule of courses that are not likely to be repeated in 2002, 2003. Where we have that information and it is fairly certain, we will be sure to indicate that so that you can plan accordingly. That was a good point. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, for night students that come in next year, we have a few first-year requirements we still have to fill. Will those be allotted for us like this year's?
Yes, yes. For those of you who are evening students who are continuing next year as well in the evening division, there will be a requirement to take constitutional law. It will be offered as constitutional law 1 and 2, 2 credits in the first semester, 3 in the second semester. And my recollection is that you will also be taking property, and that will also be offered as property 1, 3 credits, and property 2, 2 credits in the spring semester. Those are plotted out for you. And what we try to do in programming these courses is to make sure that we leave you with enough second-year type courses that you will have an opportunity to take in the other segments of time, so that you can then sign up for the 10 or 12 credits that you normally sign up for. Any other questions related to anything that we've talked about? Yes, sir.
Given that we will have time one and property the fall semester, what courses would be good stage courses? Are they supposed to be sure should we take evidence? Should we take corporations in conjunction with time and property?
There's no problem as far as I'm concerned in taking either evidence or corporations with those courses. Keep in mind that these are not being offered as 5-credit courses. They're being offered as a 2-credit course, common law 1, and a 3-credit course, property 1. So that's 5 credits. Adding a 4-credit course or another 3-credit course would not be a major problem. Should not be a major problem.
I guess the only thing that should be any, I don't know if there'd be any corrections, but anything that's constitutionally related, I probably would hold off on until I finished all of constitutional law and then pick that up.
Right. Administrative law, for example, is not something that you want to sign up for because you have not finished constitutional law. The same would be true, I think, with criminal procedure 1, Will?
Not necessarily.
No.
If you can do criminal procedure 1 without having finished constitutional law, but if you can avoid it, I would recommend it. But really, I've had students in Crim Pro who have not had constitutional law, but since I teach both, you don't have to have it.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. Yes, in the back?
In this list of classes, as a night student, are all of these classes given at night and at day, or are there some that are only given at day? Do you know what I mean?
What we do is we make it a very strong effort to offer as many of the courses as possible, both in the day and in the evening, not always in the same semester, not always in the same year. For example, banking law is offered next year in the spring term in the day. The following year, banking law will be offered at night, either in the fall or in the spring. We try to do that. There are certain seminars where we are unable to offer exactly the same seminars in the evening, although there are some seminars that only show up in the evening. And what we do is we try to schedule a number of seminars for a 4 to 6 slot. Some of you, I know, are working, but some of you have an opportunity at times to sneak away at 4 and get here for a 4 o'clock seminar. So on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we have seminars that are scheduled from 4 to 6.
And 4 is open to night students?
4 is any course is open to a night student. Any course is open. Sure. Sure. You don't have to take your courses at night. If you have the time to come during the day, that's fine. It's just a massive number of credits you can take.
So I can almost set my schedule up for it.
In a way you can. Starting in second year, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Your JD degree doesn't reflect an area of concentration, though, does it?
No, it does not. and that's something that the faculty has addressed. At the moment, they're committed to just a JD degree, not a JD degree with concentration. Yes?
Again, just for those of us who are uni students that do have full-time employment, what clinics, or have you find out what clinics are available for fully employed uni students?
I am not sure that we have clinics that are available for fully employed students, or do we? I don't think we do. But the clinics typically meet, their schedule of the classes meet from 4 to 6 on Wednesdays, so if that's a possibility. To the extent that you can get away and meet with clients and participate in court appearances during the day, you're more than welcome to sign up for a clinic. But if your work schedule is such that you will not be able to free yourself up at some point during the day to make court appearances or to meet with clients, clinics become somewhat impossible.
Do you know just generally what is the hours for a clinic during the week? Is it 10 hours a week that you have to try to contribute for?
I think it would be safe to say it's somewhere on an average of 8 to 12 hours a week, depending on the clinic. Now, some of that is not necessarily have to be done during the day. You may be doing research and real work at night or over the weekend. But in terms of client meetings and in terms of court appearances or appearances before administrative agencies, they would have to be done during the day. Yes, ma'am.
Going from university now to full-time next fall, will we be automatically placed in college and Commonwealth in the fall?
Yes, you will be placed in a day section of Con Law that will meet at times that are designed not to conflict with too many courses, and you will be required to take the evening section of property. Yes.
So that Commonwealth will be a 5-credit course?
The combo will be offered a full 5-credit course during the day.
That'll be the first semester?
First semester. Yes, ma'am.
So properties are split, property one,
It
property
will be
two.
split property 1 and property 2, and it will be offered in the evening. That's correct.
Do you know teaching that yet?
No, not yet. Anybody else? Any further questions? Yes, sir. Let's take, I'll come back to you. Yes.
So evening students then know that from August to September, we're going to have Con 1 and Property 1,
At least, yes.
at least.
Correct.
And we can choose whatever else we want after that?
Yes, provided that neither property 1 nor Con Law is a prerequisite to the course that you choose. That's correct. Yes.
What's the actual registration process? I know we'll be receiving the information, but how does it, I registered for summer classes, but I'm assuming it's not the same.
Hopefully.
You will be receiving a package of materials in an envelope. It'll be mailed to you, and if you're moving or you're going to be away during the summer, it's a good idea. We hope to have all of that out before final exams are over. You will then have about a 2-week period or 2.5-week period to fill out what your program requirements are, alternative programs that you'd like to sign up for, and then you will either mail it in or hand it in. The registrar will hang on to it. They will work on determining whether your schedule is available. To the extent that there are conflicts and you have set an alternative program, that program will be followed. If there is a major problem and you've signed up for a bunch of courses and none of them are available to you, you will receive a phone call from the registrar and you will then be able to submit additional choices. And at some point, your schedule will be set. You will receive a copy of your schedule and the courses that you're taking and the classes and teachers and so forth that you've enrolled in and signed up for much later in the course of the summer. And at times it's contingent on payment of tuition. It may still be. I'm trying to make sure that that rule, that this you have some knowledge of where you're going. Yes?
The priority system for getting classes, is that based on year or by credit?
It's based on year. But I am taking another look at the whole priority system because I'm not entirely happy with the way it works. Other questions? Yes, and I'll come back to you.
Okay, somebody mentioned that the day students have to come at least 3 days a week. Is that the same for evening students?
I believe it is the same as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's all laid out in the bulletin, and if you consult the bulletin, And the registration materials will spell out very clearly what the requirements are to comply with our ability to graduate you from the institution. Yes, ma'am?
Outside of the traditional writing courses, can you suggest any other writing courses that we should take, that, courses that we may not know or actually...
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Well, of course, you have your first year classes.
Right.
Then typically there is a class in legal drafting. There is a class in legal decision making, and sometimes the classes change. I teach a class in advanced legal writing, focusing on student scholarship. That's an example of a class that I can only have 7 students. It's a year-long class. It's very intense. So a lot of times people say, oh, I'm taking your class, and they get blocked out of it, and then they don't have a backup. So there's appellate advocacy classes, which are excellent to take, and there are quite a number of those, so that's great. And then there are many classes where a paper is an option. So you can work with a professor, say, who's doing family law, and you can do a paper, and that's, pretty good if, especially if you want to, if you're, again, thinking about targeting employers, and I don't mean everything revolves around that, but it's really wonderful to be able to mail them a copy on a paper of something they may be interested in. So if you're taking health law and there's a paper option, well, you can kill several birds with one stone, get some writing experience, have a marketing tool, and have a valuable experience. So there's a whole range. Sometimes they change a little bit, but you should be able to get into at least one a year, whether it be appellate advocacy or legal drafting or things like that.
Yes, sir.
When we look at the registration materials, will we know if a course has a paper option or whether it has an exam?
Yes, you will know. Yes, you will know. There'll be also a notation as to courses where the instructor permits enrollment in the course on a pass-fail basis. There are a limited number of courses over the course of your academic career here after the first year that you're permitted to take on a pass-fail basis, and you have to indicate that at the time of the registration. Some professors don't like it, some professors have no problems with it, and I think you're only allowed to do it, I know you're only allowed to do it a limited number of times. Yes, sir.
Sorry, one more.
Not at all, please.
I know that the school obviously has to fill out all the evaluations for the professors and the courses that they teach. Is any of that information available to the students? I just don't know what it is or where it is. Where can I see if Professor X is very good at teaching this subject and what the other students thought of from last semester?
By all means, and indeed, that's one of the reasons we do the evaluations, is to have that information available to the students to help them in the selection of courses, in addition to the usual rumor mill that you get, the buzz from other students that people were referring to. These are available, all the evaluations are available in the library. If you go to the front desk and you ask them for the student evaluation packages for a particular year, by semester, it will all be available to you by professor, and it's indexed by professor, it's not indexed by course. And then it's not the written comments that you will see, but it will be the tabulation of the results where you've checked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever those results are. So you get some sense of what students think. Any other questions? I'm glad you asked that. That's important. Any other questions? Are we done? Okay, if not, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your coming.